A financial time bomb is ticking, and almost no one in power seems willing to admit this. The U.S. Treasury is facing a guaranteed financial crisis of historic proportions, and within the next couple of weeks, the consequences could tear through the financial markets, ultimately crushing the confidence in the dollar and force Americans into an impossible choice. And it boils down to whether the U.S. will continue to fight these proxy wars, protect the Treasury market from default, or face the reality that the world is choosing gold as a way to protect themselves from the Make America Great Again rhetoric coming out of DC. And so this might sound dramatic, but when you got $36 trillion in debt, spend $7 trillion that you don't have, that you with a $2 trillion plus budget deficit. And that results in 122% debt to GDP ratio. And that means Uncle Sam doesn't have many options left before stuff hits the fan. And with roughly 9 trillion U.S. Treasury bonds coming due this year alone, and 6 trillion is due within the next 60 days, this isn't just about refinancing a headache. It's a full-blown reckoning, which are the debt policies born out of the 2008 financial crisis that was never dealt with. And here's the kicker. Those interest rates were borrowed under far lower interest rates. And now those interest rates are a lot higher. Hence, the problem is brewing at a much faster rate than a lot of people realize. And that, my friends, is something worth talking about. All right, so I want to take a quick minute to share some thoughts in reference to what's happening in the financial markets. And so we got gold right now at the time of this recording reaching above $3,300, and even silver looks like it's moving a little bit as well. So clearly there's something brewing, or something that's already broke, and it's becoming harder for the mainstream media to keep this under wraps. And that's why I love putting together these little quick takes where I get the chance to share my 2 cents on the matter, try to decipher everything and compact it in a way where you can understand it. So as always, if you guys want to see more of these, definitely hit that thumbs up button. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe so you never miss out when I put together one of these quick takes. But what I want to share today is just the fact that it looks like the Treasury market is going through a little bit of a rebellion right now. And then you factor in Trump's desperate plan to try to keep all this under wraps by continuing the tariff narrative. The idea that the U.S. just increased tariffs on China up to 245%, which makes absolutely no sense other than the fact he's trying to press them to break so that it covers up his rear end. But I'll get into more of that. And so in a nutshell, it looks like the system is walking a very thin rope right now. And as strange as that sounds, even the tariff war, the posturing with China, and Trump's battle with the Fed all tie back to this financial powder keg. And so there's 3 hard truths we're paying attention to. And one of them is the bond market's rebellion, Trump's refinancing trap, geopolitical implications, failing to control the yield curve. But first, ask yourself, why are bond yields climbing even as the economy slows? Shouldn't investors be rushing into safety like they have in the past? And the answer is, not if they see the debt as a problem itself. And so foreign buyers are clearly stepping back. You see, China, Japan, and other countries are scaling back the U.S. liabilities. And it shouldn't be no surprise that it says Trump tariffs drove a Treasury sell-off. And the big question is, who is actually selling? The most important part is the fact that central banks across the globe are pivoting to gold, signaling a loss of faith in dollar-based systems. And now, even the domestic players are showing reluctance. And so the Federal Reserve is being pushed by political pressure, particularly from Trump, to slash interest rates. And the question is, why? And the answer is easy. Because if bond yield fall, the Treasury can refinance its debt more cheaply. Jerome Powell hasn't even budged. In fact, he's saying that the restrictive policies more time to actually work their way through the economy. And there, my friends, lies the standoff between the White House and the private bankers in the Echoes building overseeing the world's monetary policy. And that, my friends, is why it appears that Trump's team is scrambling for alternatives. And as a result of this, it appears that Trump is trying to orchestrate a desperate debt plan. And here's what's not being said publicly. It's that Trump's primary concern isn't reassuring manufacturing. It's avoiding a Treasury default. So with $9 trillion on the line in 2025, this administration is working behind the scenes to prevent it from getting a lot worse. And so the plan, according to insiders, has 2 pillars. First, pressure U.S. allies, particularly those holding expiring treasuries, who accept 100-year non-tradable U.S. bonds. Interest-free, might I add. So think about that. The President of the United States or the Treasury Secretary asking countries to extend their loans indefinitely with 0 return. It's not a request, it's financial coercion. And then second, drive interest rate as low as possible by any means necessary, then issue a wave of new debt at a much lower cost that ultimately replaces the expiring high interest ones. That kind of explains the increasingly tense showdown between Trump and Powell. So with long-term yields spiking recently, Trump even paused the tariff war, which juiced the markets temporarily, which also ended up being a sign of just how precarious things really are. And then when bond yields jumped, so did the Treasury financial costs, and the administration blinked. So now we get to China's Trump card, which is to dump treasuries, not tariffs. And so this all leads us to ask, what happens next? And people realize that China holds a powerful hand, and it knows it. Because if Beijing really wanted to tighten the screws, it wouldn't just slap on retaliatory tariffs, it would start dumping U.S. treasuries, which would then lead to driving up yields and putting maximum pressure on Washington's ability to refinance itself. And hence the idea of Trump, by continuing to increase that percentage in tariff that he's looking to pass on to China, it will back them into a corner to have to make some tough decisions to whether they dump or cave is what it looks like he's willing to do to get this financial Armageddon started. And it's become quite obvious that no matter how much you increase tariffs beyond 100%, any number above that is already pointless, because at this moment, China's made it clear. And articles like this let us know that China can simply just suspend or even cancel orders to have anything to do with U.S. manufacturing companies. So China doesn't really even have to participate in this, because they can simply not ship goods to the U.S., but yet all their allies and the rest of the world still depend upon Chinese goods. And so by continuing to increase these tariffs, who does it really hurt at the end of the day? Not only can China continue to sell off their holdings of U.S. liabilities if they need to, but on the other end, with all this tariff talk, they can continue to ramp up and increase their trade with other partners that over time will allow them to balance off the things they're losing from the U.S. And so that's the nuclear option in this financial war we're witnessing right now. So it would expose the Achilles heel of the U.S., its dependency on debt buyer, and it will force a brutal reckoning inside of America's own policy elite, and it forced to choose between military posturing over this whole Taiwan situation that hasn't been talked about much but is still present, or avoiding a debt default. Which would America choose? And unfortunately, we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. And so the question I want to ask you is, why should you care about this? Because this isn't about abstract bond charts or crazy central bank policy. This is about your cost of living, your retirement, your mortgage, because it's all priced in a currency that only has 3 cents left of its original purchasing power of 100. And so ultimately, it's going to accelerate the debasement of our currency even faster. If interest rates spike because no one wants U.S. debt, housing will then follow. The stock market tanks and inflation roars back like never before. And then if the Fed tries to cap yields with massive bond buying, aka quantitative easing, the dollar would take a nosedive, and confidence in U.S. financial systems could fracture literally overnight. And so between the political posturing, the trade war, and the infighting at the Fed, it all ties back to one truth, and that's that the U.S. government is running out of ways to finance itself without consequences. Even the Doge clock, which shows alleged savings that our government now has as a result of exposing all this crime and corruption within our government. Mind you, not one single person has been exposed or arrested for signing off on any of that criminality within our government. There will be no amount of funds that the Doge team can save that will get Uncle Sam off the hook for the decades of malfeasance within Washington, D.C. So once again, just taking a minute, share my 2 cents on a variety of subject matter, all surrounding this current monetary system that we're in, and how the tremors are starting to increase in size, which basically says it's something is already broken and the average person has yet to find out yet. But thank God you pay attention to videos like this and you know more than the average person. Obviously, the gold price is telling us where everyone is running to. And with that, my friends, I don't want to tell you about all this information that might scare some, but hopefully educate others as to where you should be. And that's why I want to continue to remind people to consider getting your hands on what I consider to be the most affordable gold that can help you protect and preserve everything you work hard for. And in my opinion, there's no better way to create your own gold standard by creating your own insurance policy against failing fiat currency. And all it takes is just 1 unit at a time to add up and start your own gold reserve and 24 karat gold notes that help protect and preserve everything that you work hard for. And so if you're interested in finding out more, then visit buygoldnotes.com. Links in the description. There's no reason why not to be able to grab the most affordable gold to have in your possession to either spend, trade, or redeem back into fiat in the future if you needed to. But other than that, just taking a minute, sharing my 2 cents on what's happening out here. Curious to hear your thoughts. If you found value, hit that thumbs up, drop a comment, subscribe, and take this and share so more people can get an alternative perspective as to what's really going on. And I'll catch you guys later.